Welcome to Mission Minute News. I'm Jennifer Rodriguez. First, the headlines. The Pope denounces human trafficking. Pope Leo's tips for Christian formation. Another restoration for Michelangelo's Last Judgment. U.S. CCB President calls for Holy Hour to ease tensions. Pope Leo declares Jubilee Year for St. Francis, and huge crowds will venerate St. Francis' remains. Arnoldus Family Corner. These stories and more on Mission Minute News. The Pope denounces human trafficking. Pope Leo XIV marked the 12th World Day Against Human Trafficking with a strong condemnation of this modern slavery and exploitation of vulnerable people, calling it a grave crime against humanity and urging global action to end it. In his February 8th message, the Pope warned that human trafficking is worsening in the digital spaces, citing the rise of cyberslavery, where victims are coerced into online criminal schemes. He linked trafficking and armed conflict and geopolitical instability with women and children most affected. True peace, he said, begins with recognizing the God-given dignity of every person. He criticized a culture that treats human beings as expendable in pursuit of political or economic gain. The Pope called Christians to prayer in resistance to injustice and thanked organizations that assist survivors, entrusting the cause to St. Josephine Bakhita, a former slave herself, but now a symbol of hope. Pope Leo's tips for Christian formation. Addressing the plenary assembly of the Dicastery for Laity, Family, and Life on February 6th, Pope Leo emphasized that Christian formation requires patience, accompaniment, and strong safeguards against abuse. The Pope urged respect for human life at every stage, especially that of minors. Christian formation, he said, is rooted in the communal life of the Church, not in a single leader nor in doctrine alone, but rather in the lived faith of the community, similar to the love parents give their children. Formators need to help the faithful integrate Christian life into work, relationships, and daily conduct. No improvisation here, but only genuine modeling like that of the saints, Ignatius of Loyola and Philip Neri, for example. The Pope urged leaders to have courage despite the challenges, relying on the Gospel's mustard seed logic and trusting in Mary's guidance. Another restoration for Michelangelo's Last Judgment. A 3-month restoration of Michelangelo's Last Judgment in the Sistine Chapel has begun. This is a follow-up of the major restoration that revealed the artwork's vivid palette 30 years ago, the first after its completion in the year 1541. In the meantime, a whitish film of airborne particles has dulled the fresco's colors and contrasts. The chapel will remain open throughout the restoration work, with the artisans working behind a high-definition reproduction of the fresco as they clean the 180 square meter masterpiece, which contains 391 figures. The Vatican Museum hopes to restore the painting's original luminosity and depth qualities that once left viewers filled with awe and wonder, according to the 16th century painter and art historian Giorgio Vasari. U.S. CCB President calls for Holy Hour to ease tensions. Archbishop Paul S. Coakley, President of the U.S. Conference of Catholic Bishops, has called for a nationwide Holy Hour for peace amid the current climate of fear and polarization. Acknowledging the fear and sense of powerlessness many feel in the face of political unrest, violence, and social division, Coakley said that acts of faith, mercy, and justice, no matter how small, will contribute to the nation's healing. The Archbishop went on to praise Catholics and others of goodwill who are feeding the hungry, welcoming the migrants, and caring for the sick. Peaceful assembly that respects lawful order and merciful works can build peace more surely than anger or despair, he said. Coakley decried the recent fatal encounters with ICE in Minneapolis and Texas, calling them tragic examples of failures to uphold human dignity, and invited bishops and priests across the country, as well as individual Catholics, to offer a holy hour in the coming days, praying for reconciliation, justice, and consolation. He encouraged the faithful to entrust their hopes to the Sacred Heart of Jesus, confident that God hears the cry of his people. Pope Leo declares a Jubilee year of St. Francis. Pope Leo XIV has proclaimed another Jubilee year, this one marking the 800th anniversary of the death of St. Francis of Assisi, and inviting Catholics to rediscover the saint's witness to peace, fraternity, and care for creation. The observance runs until January 10, 2027, and offers the possibility of a plenary indulgence through the usual conditions: sacramental confession, communion, and prayer for the Pope's intentions, and a pilgrimage to any Franciscan church worldwide. Those unable to travel may make a spiritual pilgrimage by offering their illness or their limitations to God. The Pope highlighted St. Francis as a model of Christ's peace, urging the faithful to embrace reconciliation over division and cultivate right relationships with God, humanity, and the natural world. Francis' life, he said, does not provide technical solutions to conflict, but points to Christ as the true source of peace. The Jubilee year also provides the Franciscan religious family a great opportunity to deepen their own spiritual life and give witness to the world. Huge crowds will venerate St. Francis' remains. More than 350,000 people have registered to venerate the relics of St. Francis of Assisi from February 22nd to March 22nd of this Jubilee year in the lower level of the Basilica of St. Francis in Assisi. For the first time, St. Francis' body will be moved from its underground chapel and placed before the papal altar, marking the 800th anniversary of the saint's death in October of 1226. Pilgrims from around the world will pray and reflect before the treasured bodily remains of the man long revered as the living mirror of the gospel. Arnold's Family Corner. SVDs in Vienna screen a documentary on the migrants' plight. The Divine Word Parish in Alexenegasse, Vienna, marked the January 15th feast of St. Arnold Jansen with the screening of People on the Run, Hope and Help. A 24-minute documentary produced by Style Medien, the film highlights the Church's efforts to support migrants in Central America and the Balkans. A panel discussion followed the film featuring Brother Emmanuel Humer, SVD, Style Medien, Managing Director Anton Deutschmann. Panelists emphasized the importance of solidarity, mutual support, and concrete action in the face of migrant hardship. Deutschmann noted the film's goal of portraying migration not with numbers, but with faces. SVDs in Chad hold assembly in Bongar. 13 SVDs and one seminarian from 5 countries, all serving Chad, gathered in Bongar from January 12th through the 16th for a mission assembly focused on pastoral challenges, missionary identity, and future planning. The group reviewed proposals from the Generalate in Rome and the Mission Superior addressing spiritual life and practical concerns, and celebrated a Eucharist of Thanksgiving on the feast of founder St. Arnold Jansen, January 15th. SVD Task Force aids family displaced by Typhoon Tino. Families living in the temporary tent community of Sitio Deus Talisay City receive support from SVD Philippines Southern Province Task Force after losing their homes to Typhoon Tino. Despite rain, the event drew local officials, SVD Provincial Father Roger Baggio, SSPS Sisters, USC employees, DYRF staff, SVD Crusaders, and volunteers from Germany. Activities included a blessing of tents, games for children, and the distribution of toys, stationery, mats, and plastic pallets to help keep families dry. The gathering concluded with a shared lunch, during which organizers expressed gratitude to the benefactors who made the outreach possible. SVDs mark the feast of St. Joseph Friednademitz. January 29th marked the feast of St. Joseph Friednademitz, one of the first Divine Word missionaries sent overseas. Arriving in China in 1879, he served there until his death from typhus in 1908. Known for his deep identification with the local people, St. Joseph was remembered as a man of prayer, a compassionate pastor, and a defender of marginalized believers. His personal and empathetic approach has influenced generations of missionaries. Revered in China as Fu Shenfu, meaning the lucky priest, he was canonized with St. Arnold Jansen on October 5, 2003. SVDs engage youth at Australian Catholic Youth Festival. Divine Word missionaries participated in the Australian Catholic Youth Festival in Melbourne, held November 30th through December 2nd, where they promoted missionary vocations and shared the congregation's charism with more than 6,000 young people. Vocations Director Father Jan Wuriano, SVD, attended with seminarians from Dorish Marrow College. He said the goal was not immediate recruitment, but helping young Catholics recognize their role in the Church's mission and consider religious life as one possible path. Sisters repurpose property for senior housing. The Sisters of St. Joseph of Orange have converted their large mother house in California into affordable senior housing, completing a decade-long project to adapt their facilities to current needs. Built in 1959 for about 60 sisters, the edifice housed only 25 by the year 2013, prompting the congregation to assess its entire 11-building campus. After consulting nonprofits and community partners in 2015, the sisters partnered with Mercy Housing, an organization they had originally helped sponsor to transform the 80,000 square foot main building. In June, officials opened Via St. Joseph, which now contains 50 senior apartments, including 18 reserved for formerly homeless residents. The project addresses a growing regional need for senior housing while extending the sisters' mission to serve the poor and the vulnerable. Sister Mary Bernadette McNulty, who helped lead the effort, said the emotional decision ultimately became a continuation of their ministry. "I gave 10 years of my life to this project," she said, "and now I can hang up my spurs." The repurposing of the convent for senior housing has become an increasingly common trend among U.S. religious communities, given the decline in membership numbers. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel and click on the bell icon. Share with others about the channel and the variety of programs you enjoy there. And please join us every Wednesday for our online Eucharist and Adoration and Benediction of the Blessed Sacrament, starting at 11 a.m. Pacific Time. You can also catch it later on YouTube. Send us your prayer requests or intentions for the Eucharist by phone to 909-383-4333 or send an email to mail@wordnet.tv. This is Mission Minute News. Until we meet again, stay safe and well, and may Jesus' love for you make you smile.